second. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm not sure if anyone's going to be joining in because it's quite late for us right now, but we're going to be doing just launch coverage of the iPhone launch event. So let's have a listen because the event has already started. Oops. All right. Oops. So we're hearing about the new AirPods and some. All right. So we're talking about having live translation. I've had mixed experiences using just regular translation app with Apple because it doesn't allow you to edit um, what you say. And so obviously these are going to have inbuilt AI translation engines on the headphones. But given that the AI translation engine on the phones themselves is really bad, honestly, um, I imagine it's going to be a similar level to that. So I don't really see that feature being super useful in terms of having anything more than a basic interaction. But at that point, like you've already got your phone out probably, so why not just use your phone? Um, yeah, it does go to show how much effort Apple has put um, into developing their AirPods with local device processing. So it started off with the AirPods Pro first generation back in the day, with them like developing spatialization and noise canceling as the headlining features that used a lot of processing power at the time. And yeah, it's incredible to see how this branch of technology has evolved. So let's see, can anyone hear me properly? All right. So now we have even more information about the AirPods. Um, so yeah, AirPods Pro free. It seems like a relatively, oh, interesting. So heart rate sensing through, oh, through the ear. And so their sensors, huh. Yeah, sensors integrated directly into the earbuds. That seems like quite an interesting development. yeah, we're seeing more and more devices become more multi-purpose, and so these AirPods gaining that heart rate sensing functionality that takes away one of the main reasons that a lot of people would have the watch, because most people work out with earpods in, and if they don't have a watch, then they kind of like don't need to buy a watch anymore. Um, so that's a rare occasion where Apple cannibalizes itself and its own features. But hey, you're not hearing me complain. All right, so we're seeing AI being integrated into fitness. That was a big part of Samsung's AI strategy as well. Just at the start of September, where they revealed some new applications that would gather data around these data monitoring sensors that they have been selling for a while, and creating what is becoming slightly useful information versus like just useless information in the past, like saying, oh yeah, you have had the biggest workout you've done in a month. That could start becoming something useful in the next generation. So it's still not quite at a level where it really is anything more than just a curiosity, like, oh, that's neat. But it's progressing. Um, Here, so we're talking about all their bento boxes, 65% recycled plastic. Apple has been on their environmental goals. They're trying to make all the products that they make 100% carbon neutral. So either that's with carbon offset or by using renewable materials in their packaging, um, or just subsidizing it with the cost by purchasing more carbon offsets. All their Apple stores are powered by solar power in theory, or offset solar power. All right. So finally, we're switching to not the main events. A new Apple Watch. Last year, when we covered the Apple Watch, we saw an even smaller, thinner version of the watch. So I'm curious to see what they're offering this year to draw attention. So right now we have Tim Cook saying the very valid argument of like, oh yeah, we have fall detection on our watches. It saved a lot of lives. You should buy your watch for your relative who might fall. It's marketing, but it's marketing that works because it is true. Other devices allow you to have fall detection, but the Apple Watch was one of the first that really um, popularized this. So they're really pulling at the heartstrings, and trying to make it like, this saved my life. You should, if you want to save your life, you should buy an Apple Watch. And yeah, I mean, it is good filmmaking. It Like, these stories obviously are amazing, and I'm very happy for these people. But this is marketing, obviously, from Apple to try and associate like heartwarming stories with their brand. And I don't, yeah, I don't think that, like, I think that the watches themselves are strong products, but it feels a little bit tired that they're using the same strategy as they did last year, to have us like associate it with, oh my god, this is life changing tech. And so I wonder how they got this footage if they didn't have their phones. Maybe they had GoPros or something. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is certainly impressive that these Apple Watches, for how tiny they are, have satellite SOS functionality, and that they are able to call emergency services. That's definitely like a big factor for example, my grandma. I would like her to wear something like that because she often falls when she gets up. She is in an assisted living facility, but even then, like sometimes it takes a while for people to get around or to notice that she's fallen, or even sometimes she can't reach the button that says when she's fallen. So um, yeah, definitely, again, still the same marketing tactic. Oh, but hey, look at this. We have almost 2 million people watching the live stream. Not mine, obviously. Um, I might have no one at all the whole time. But hey, I'm doing my research. I need to do this anyways, so I'm happy to have some practice being live. I know that a lot of live streaming is just talking to the camera in hopes that someone appears at some point. I know this is probably not the most compelling footage, but hey, I need some practice. So you're not watching this anyway, so it's fine. Okay, some animations from Apple's Park, and we're here to the actual new Apple Watch product. Yeah. All right, some more scratch-resistant glass, which I'm sure that we'll still manage to find a way to scratch anyways. Oh, are we going to use an Apple modem? So, modem. So 5G modem, so it must be from Qualcomm. Maybe, I don't know, because the C1 was used in the iPhone 16e, which was this cut down version of the the iPhone 16. But especially in applications like a watch where there's very low power, you wouldn't want to use this kind of experimental new router technology. You kind of want to have it be reliable 100%. Power draw is slightly higher on the Apple chips. Apple has been trying to create 5G modems for their devices for the past 6 years, 7 years, something like that. And so, yeah, that was just a thought from what I'm seeing that is a Qualcomm modem that they're using. Modem. I'm sorry for mispronouncing it. So we have some new features on the Apple Watches. Um, Apple has been in a lawsuit with Massimo for the past 4 years around their blood sensor monitoring, um, which was disabled in the US for a while. It was re-enabled recently for some shenanigans, but they're talking about the Apple Watch as this medical device first and foremost. That is reinforced by the introductory sketch that they showed us. Well, not sketch, but introductory segment. So they're talking about detecting hypertension, which they wouldn't. Is something new actually. You had blood pressure monitoring. Not blood pressure monitoring. You had what's the Massimo? Blood oxygen. So blood oxygen. Oops. All right, so checking on hypertension. So now this is blood pressure and blood tension, like tension rather. So right now it's not cleared through regulators, but I suspect Apple is trying to push it to publication first so that people expect it, and that puts pressure on regulators to act faster, which might be why it's not yet accepted. So they're just selling their current features. What's new? Oh, they're giving you a sleep score. So very similar to what Aura has created. I think they were the pioneers of that with their smart rings that would detect your breathing patterns and your your heart rate. Um, so the sleep score, yeah, just is a distillation of how good your sleep was in terms of like percentage of hours that you've slept, and how restful it was actually, because you can sleep for 10 hours and have awful sleep. um, yeah, so Apple is talking about, yeah, being able to develop the sleep score. I imagine it's quite accurate, especially given the Apple Watch's track record of being one of the most prominent sleep trackers. I don't know if it's the biggest seller. It used to be in the smartwatch space. I'm sure like some cheap smartwatch from Fitbit or from some Chinese seller is actually more likely to have an individual SKU that has sold more watches because it's much cheaper. Um, but yeah, these watches, especially if you get 24-hour battery life, can last for a day. And you can now actually wear them at night, um, charge them while you're showering or something like that, and make sure that you're able to not lose them, like I did mine in the Dubai airport, which was really annoying. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about vibrant new colors, but I mean, I just see a slightly like desert titanium style. It's very similar to the titanium bands, sorry, titanium designs that they had on the iPhone 16 Pro lineup. Um, so I think that's the inspiration there. But for the steel watches, it just looks like chrome to me. Slight, yeah. So there's as we can see from the bento boxes right now, um, yeah, it seems that a lot of it is focused on health, as always, with AI for sleep scores, for workouts, for better monitoring and better integration with the rest of their ecosystem. Oh, hello, we have one viewer. Wonderful. So yeah, I'm doing the live stream while the Apple event is going on, so you might want to open up the Apple event on a separate tab. But we're just discussing what the new features on the Apple Watch Series 11 is just coming out. So yeah, they're saying the new always-on style of display. So we have accessibility features through the Apple Watch that were included. It's part of the push that Apple has this year for creating this ecosystem of safety and health. So from the monitoring to accessibility features, initially it was an accessibility feature that you could do to just tap your fingers together. You would have to activate it. It became a real feature. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, and now they're expanding on that. Um, but yeah, they're creating an easier way to interact with the watch without having to touch it, because it's not super ergonomic to do this. Um, but yeah, integrating it with the AirPods, integrating it with touch gestures, very similar to what they have on the Apple Vision Pro. Um, I mean, it definitely seems like they're a slightly concerted push. At this point last year, they had brought up the Vision Pro as a third product. Um, the first product that they talked about were the AirPods. The second product was the watch this year. So I'm curious to see if the Apple Vision Pro is the next product that they talk about before the iPhone. Um, we've not heard anything at all about the Vision Pro, so it would be surprising if they had any announcements. But given how much Apple has staked on the Vision Pro becoming a success, um, it would be surprising to have it. Oh, it would be surprising to not have it show up. All right, to indicate how extreme the Apple Watch Ultra is, um, we're here in the mountains. All right. So, sorry, I was just solving a technical issue. Welcome to the new viewer on this show. So, we are covering the Apple livestream event, which will be revealing the new iPhone 17. Right now, they're talking about the Apple Watch Series Ultra, which just has upgraded GPS, upgraded cellular. It's positioned as this adventurous smartwatch. Um, but yeah, just having a new tandem OLED, a new OLED screen that allows for much higher visibility in sunlight, especially if you're in a high brightness situation, if you're doing sports or if you're underwater like diving, it can maybe be useful. I don't know anyone who's complained about the Ultra 2 having like a dim screen, so I don't see like I'm sure that once we get used to much brighter screens, we won't want to go back to something a little bit dimmer. But yeah, it's if you want, I'm sure you already have the Apple events pulled up on a second tab because otherwise it sounds like I'm raving. I would want to have a projector right here, but I haven't had the time to set it up. Um, yeah, seems like a relatively minor revision, just faster charging, the same features from the other watches where you have a sleep score, you have new AI workout features, new health features. It's still focused first as a health device. So if you fall, if you have a scrape, if you need an SOS feature, then the Apple Watch is here for you, is what Apple is saying. Let's see, as I was saying just before, if they mention the Vision Pro, because that was the line, the third device that they mentioned last year, I believe, at the same event. Um, a new SE, which is given the exact same amount of attention that I think Apple cares about. It's just a cut down version of an old watch that they can sell at basically the same price, but with higher software support and slightly tweaked other features. Um, let's see what the next product is. I imagine that there's going to be something about, I don't know, iPads or a Vision Pro. So I'm quite curious to see what Tim has to say right now. Um, let me know what you want me to talk about, mysterious viewer. I'm intrigued that you're joining us. Um, but yeah, this wrap up on the watch is taking a very long time. Oh, we're here at the iPhone already, so no Vision Pro at all. Um, we're now at Apple iPhone 17. So we're talking about the first revision of the iPhone. It's probably going to be the most powerful iPhone ever produced. And we'll see how that goes. But oops, raising the bar. Ah, I should have put up a bingo card right behind us um, of all the cliched lines that they give us. But oops, the needs of our users. It starts now. Oh my goodness. So purple. That's a nice, very. Oh, the green looks nice. Um, yeah, it looks a bit more pastel than the regular 16 line, slightly more. Um, so the prediction that was that they would no longer use titanium for the iPhone 17, instead just go back to using aluminum, which would allow it to be slightly lighter. We can see they still have the action button. So absolutely, it's incredible. You don't know anything about it, but it's incredible. So let's see, we're going on to the beaches. I have no idea why, but I'm really looking forward to hearing about the new features. We are supposed to have a new SoC, um, new cameras for the front camera. I imagine that would be one of the first things that they talk about. Um, yeah, lavender looks quite nice. It looks very pale and not super saturated. So I'm curious to see. I'm going to the Apple Store at 10 a.m. this morning to see what it looks like. So, oh, the regular iPhone 17 gets ProMotion. So whereas the past iPhone 16 line and every iPhone, non-Pro iPhone up until now has received 60 hertz displays, they're now at 120 hertz with an LTPO OLED screen. Um, which allows you to just save battery and have an always-on display. So I'm curious. Yeah, these sound like very similar specs to the iPhone 16 Pro display. Um, so it might have just been a transplant. Um, yeah, interesting. I wasn't expecting the display to be quite as directly, like that was one of the rumor mill items. Will they actually transplant the display from the iPhone 16 Pro into the 17, or will they still keep it as a differentiator for people who care about performance? Typically, the first thing that they talk about is, oh, well, I can't get the regular iPhone because it's not going to have 120 hertz refresh rate. So a new coating on the main screen. I don't know anyone who would rock an iPhone without a screen protector because a scratch on the display just tanks your resale value. So that's my 2 cents. As much as people like having tough direct screens and that doesn't hurt, I think like the main thing is that you're just going to add a screen protector onto it immediately. So A19, it's supposed to be using the 3 nanometer performance node from TSMC. So we don't really know what the cores mean exactly because this is a new generation, but it looks relatively similar to what was rumored, I believe. All right, 6-core CPU with 4 efficiency cores. So it seems like they're kind of focusing on the battery life aspect of it. I'm curious what the battery life is going to be like because the iPhone battery capacity has never been the main selling point. Um, they're talking about 20% faster than the last generation on the same process node from TSMC. So they've made a lot of improvements in terms of efficiency. They're not talking about the um, vapor plate cooler on the 17, regular 17. I believe it was just rumored, vapor chamber rather, vapor chamber cooler for the iPhone 17 Pro versus the iPhone 17. 17 probably just will have regular cooling, um, which will affect how much power you can put through it. For the general A19 chip, that makes sense because they don't really want to jeopardize the iPhone 17 Pro with the iPhone 17. They still want to have some kind of separation in terms of processing. But Apple has been one of the most forward-thinking companies in terms of adding processing power to their lower-end devices and instead just incentivizing you to upgrade through cameras or through other features like displays. Um, we're getting to the battery life, so let's see what they're saying. ProMotion is going to help because it can, damn, so 8 more hours of video playback versus the iPhone 16 because it was locked at 60 hertz before. Probably the LTPO adaptive refresh rate allows them to lower the frame rates and maybe have lower power consumption. They don't talk about exact numbers of milliamp hours because Apple really has very low milliamp hours compared to every other manufacturer, basically. But let's see what they're talking about right now. So, dual fusion. It's not a new camera compared to last year's iPhone 16, which I'm shooting this for. So, oh, we're no longer getting a wide-angle lens on the. We're no longer getting an ultra-wide on the regular models. So that is really surprising because the ultra-wide is really one of the most like transformative applications of cameras in smartphones for the past couple of years. Yeah, getting access to a wider space in a room, I would have thought is more important than the 2x zoom that you would get on telephoto. It used to be that a lot of manufacturers would include a 2x telephoto zoom, but it fell away out of favor in favor of an ultra wide camera. Oh, sorry. So yeah, that was just the Fusion camera. So that was the main camera with the 2x zoom. So scratch that what I said. it was slightly unclear on the website, so on the presentation that we're doing. So front camera probably will be upgraded to 24 megapixels instead of 12. Um, it will still probably be a smaller sensor than the main camera, so you wouldn't want to use it for every situation, but yeah, I'm curious to see, because a lot of the times as well, for me, when I'm streaming or when I'm taking videos of myself, it would be good to see myself to make sure that the framing is right. Right now, I have to monitor myself through my laptop. It's obviously not an ideal setup, but it's talking about a wider field of view, which is useful for group shots. If you've ever taken a selfie like this, like, I'm going to try and get a little bit more range. This is probably going to be cool. So a square sensor compared to a 4:3 aspect ratio. We've actually heard a lot about square sensors recently with DJI Osmo 360 camera. That was one of the main selling points of getting larger photos, basically. Um, so yeah, a square sensor allowing for more compositions, that makes a lot of sense. But I'm curious to see what it actually will look like in person. So I'm going to see that today once I get to the Apple Store. But definitely a selling point, I think, for the creators and for the Instagram influencers, having, or just YouTube Shorts, TikTok creators, live sellers who will definitely want to use this camera a little bit more. I don't believe they've talked about a higher resolution though, so I don't know. It's surprising that they would not talk about it. I might have just missed it. So mystery viewer who's with us, please let me know what you want me to talk about. I'm curious why you're joining me, because yeah, this is not the most compelling content that I put out, but I appreciate you being here, and I will address anything that you want me to talk about. Yeah, so stabilization on the selfie camera. It seems kind of similar to center stage that they have on the iPad and on the iMac cameras, which allows you to reframe intelligently. So that's definitely a main selling point for a lot of people, I'm sure, to be able to have a more stable video taking experience, especially for low light or for bad connectivity situations where you're doing FaceTime calls. Yeah. So 48 megapixel dual fusion camera system is last year's claims. It seems, I believe it's a slightly bigger display, 256 gigs as starting storage, so that is a welcome sight. Apple was infamous for keeping a 32 and then 64 gigabytes model of their iPhones for way too long, which was basically unusable for a long time, because even just downloading the apps that you need was just a pain. You would have to uninstall things. So now them putting 256 gigs as default, I don't think anyone is really going to need more, especially with how hard they're pushing for their iCloud services. Yeah, I'm curious to see what they're going to do for the Pro. So truly amazing again. Tim could have probably used some adjective classes, thesaurus. So we have a Slim now. So it is official. Okay, really taking kind of a parody parody voice of what an Apple ad sounds like. It's very stereotypical. This is a very cool ad format with the effect of it floating up. But yeah, I'm curious about the stainless steel. It's a very retro vibe compared to the iPhone X when that came, and the reflective chrome-style plating. I'm curious to see how much better it'll hold up, because the iPhone X hasn't held up that well over the years in terms of the scratches that it would get. And yeah, you have a ceramic shield on both sides. So to improve the toughness of the back as well as the front, to make sure that it doesn't crack, given how expensive repairs are for Apple, that is definitely good, especially how small it is. I wish they would just use plastic or metal like the good old days, but Nowadays, it's all glass, baby. Plastic is apparently too unpremium for people. I still insist that plastic is a better material. Um, so they talk about remarkable battery, but they don't talk about the capacity. So they say high density, but they don't talk about capacity. Sounds like it's going to be a low capacity battery. Sounds about right. Apple is very good at optimization, so it's likely that they will be able to draw out decent battery life. But the fact that they don't talk about the figures directly when they talk about it, present it initially. So it is Air. So it is not slim. It's iPhone Air. I don't know why Tim Cook is in a parking lot at nighttime. It's a very unconventional shot compared to what Apple typically does. Like in terms of production quality, it doesn't look very good. This looks great, actually, the lighthouse in front of New York. But yeah, I'm quite surprised at that shot of Tim Cook in front of that hangar. Typically, they have slightly better showmanship. But let's get back to the iPhone 17 Air. Um, I'm curious. I don't know. They've talked about the processor that's inside of it. It is the thinnest iPhone they've ever made. It's not the thinnest smartphone ever made. 5.6 millimeters. I'm curious if that's the thickness at the slimmest points or if that's a thickness at the camera bump. It is a chunky camera bump, especially it will be weighted to one side. So that's the same issue that you had with S25 Slim. That's the same issue that you have with other like super slim foldables like the Honor Magic V5, where these devices, sure, they're super slim, but then you have to put it on a case. You can't put them down because then they're gonna like flick, they're gonna tilt, and it's just gonna be a bad experience. So we now have the Plateau, which was hotly rumored. People were like not convinced about it, but I'm sure that it's making the most use of the extra thickness for the camera as well as um, for other parts of the processor and um, for other parts of critical functions of a smartphone. Um, so they say it's more durable. It's probably in part because it's lighter with recycled titanium. So they are using titanium. It's slightly heavier than aluminum, but I'm sure given the space constraints, it's probably makes sense for them to use it. Um, so that gold looks way more vibrant than we had last year, and sky blue. So blue for a titanium phone, they must have gotten that electroplating slightly better than last year, because last year they only had three options: the natural, the desert, and silver. Um, so them introducing a blue color as well as a really vibrant gold, that is definitely progress that they've made over the past year. It's incredible the lengths that Apple goes to engineer their products. And yeah, they're talking about a new chip. Let's see what their A19 Pro. Okay. Um, so they're putting the Pro processor into the Air. So we still have four high efficiency cores versus two performance cores, which is the same ratio as the regular A19. So I'm curious how it's different. Yeah, curious. That better way of presenting it probably would be yeah. This is a kind of obtuse way to present the A19. I wish they had done a better job of like having some graphs directly. It might be because it doesn't compare particularly well to past generations, but either way, like mentioning doubling of 16-bit float calculations, people don't really understand what that means. So I imagine it's just to elicit like, oh, it's doubling, or 3 times peak computes. Um, I don't know how much it'll throttle or like what the power, like how much that is derived from the power limits that might be higher on the Pros versus the 17 Pro versus the 16 Pro. Um, so as always, Apple's benchmarks and graphs are not the best. Um, I wish they had like better data, but N1, what is this? Ooh, so similar to the C1. So I was talking just earlier about them trying to replace a Qualcomm 5G modem in their smartphones. So it seems that the N1, they're very proud about their Apple design modem. Compared to the C1, the N1 apparently is a critical innovation that couldn't be obtained through Qualcomm. Um, so faster than the C1. So yeah, we're very proud about it. Um, I'm not sure about why they're comparing it to last generation's products. I'm sure Qualcomm has something competing, but it probably doesn't sound as good. And Apple never makes comparisons to other brands, or rarely, or direct comparisons, especially one with which they have as contentious a relationship with as Qualcomm. They're never going to mention like, oh yeah, the newest generation Qualcomm is better. Um, but yeah, I mean, this sounds like a genuine innovation in terms of the N1 and the C1X. Then finally being able to create this device, this modem, that allows them to no longer pay licensing fees to Qualcomm. Apple hates licensing fees. They they have a very like principled approach in which they believe that everyone owes like they have a right to doing everything themselves. These are beautiful photos. Wow, that model is pretty. Um, but yeah, it seems like just the same camera as the other um, the other cameras in the lineup, just without an ultra wide sensor. All right. So we don't really have any extra information about the cameras because it's just the same as before, basically. This kind of ad placement compared to the 16 is basically useless, because we already have this. So we're making 4 lenses out of 1 lens. This is bullshit. It's basically sure for the 2x. It's not a lens. It's just digital cropping. For a 48 megapixel camera, sure you can crop a bit, but there's only so far that you can crop, especially in low light, um, until it just becomes a blurry mess. But dual capture video, that is great. They don't mention it in the other smartphones, in the regular iPhone 17. So I'm curious if that is part of the iPhone 17 as well. I would imagine so. But that is really cool. That is a feature that some other devices have had. But I've been really curious about it as well. Um, 4K 60 recording. So it seems, yeah, a little bit um, of a lower bar than the iPhone 16 Pro, but still slightly upgraded compared to last year. Yeah, they're talking about eSIMs. Um, Last year, or no, it was 2 years ago already that the iPhone 15 had gone fully eSIM on their US lineup. Living in Hong Kong, our iPhones have a regular SIM slot because we can't. Chinese mainland, the Chinese government doesn't trust eSIMs basically, um, and Apple didn't want to compromise by having an eSIM option and a regular SIM. They just want one, so they created a special SKU just for China basically, where it's so they talk about eSIM only worldwide. I don't know about China though. Um, yeah, that's what they said last time, and still China was not. Still China made them put on a physical SIM slot. So it has been rethought, obviously, because it's a new design. Um, so adaptive power mode. we already had that on other devices, on the past devices. So I don't know what exactly is new. We have adaptive charging, but I don't know exactly how it'll throttle performance um, compared to just switching on the power saving mode. So it might just be a smart power saving mode that activates automatically, which will probably be helpful for a lot of people. So probably faster turning off of the screen, um, and defaults basically. New low profile MagSafe battery that allows it to be the same width as the camera bump. They don't give us any stats on the MagSafe battery, so I don't. It's probably 5,000 milliamp hours. Um, I'm surprised. Yeah, they didn't have an Apple TV call out. Yeah. So, I think that's the um, first polycarbonate case that they've released. So that makes sense given that this is the thinnest and most likely to be dropped iPhone. But wow, they're capitalizing on the strap trend. This is like a 3-year-old trend nowadays. So Apple took 3 years to do this, but um, yeah, surprising that they would integrate that into one of their proprietary or like stock type cases. I think a lot of people will really like it, and it'll take a lot of business out of a lot of custom manufacturers. Um, let's see now about the iPhone 17 Pro. We still have our second mystery viewer who is. I'm really curious who you are, so please send me a message, anything. I feel like I'm talking to a void right now, and I still don't understand why you're listening, but thank you so much. Next year, I will do a much better job of setting up a projector behind me and um, doing it properly. So, Tim, still with this very, very dark um, setup, it still doesn't look good. I don't understand why they did this. All right, iPhone 17 Pro. Let's see if the rumor mill was true. I'm very, very curious. We set out to redefine the product, driven by performance, durability, and capability. So that seems like a slab of aluminum. But there's, yeah. So instead of titanium, it is aluminum. CNC machined, like every single other, um, like every single other Apple. That saturation looks amazing. Um, that orange looks really kicking. So unibody iPhone. Wow. So that will definitely help with thermal dissipation, which would explain why they were touting such higher performance numbers for the A19 Pro. Um, biggest battery in any iPhone. They still don't give us the capacity, which classic Apple. Um, a new design for the antenna with a full slab for the camera bump, similar to the Slim Air rather. The A19 Pro, as we know, which is the most powerful iPhone ever made, um, of course. So completely new to Apple. These vapor chambers have been used on a lot of high-end Android smartphones. It allows for higher dissipation, and we have the same thing of dual ceramic on the front and back, which in theory allows it to be slightly more resistant. Um, these tests don't mean anything, but it is good to see Apple focusing on at least resistance. There's no mention at all of climate goals in this whole presentation. These colors look really vibrant, especially with orange. It's definitely the most stunning one. We're switching back to Tim instead of someone else just yet. But yeah, we used to hear like last year they had Mother Nature coming in as a sketch to talk about their climate goals. They're not talking about it at all. which might indicate the US administration having an influence on this. They don't really feel the need to signal about it, um, to signal that they have any commitments to climate goals. Apple still does a lot of work on climate and responsibility in terms of their packaging and in terms of renewable energy use and that kind of thing. But it's clearly no longer a priority for consumers, or at least for the perceived brand of Apple, to care about it so much. So thermal management, we've heard a lot of issues about the iPhone 16 Pro's overheating. My own 16 Pro has overheated so many times, and it's like, why are you so hot? I really didn't understand. So having a new thermal management system will definitely allow for a better experience for people when they're installing apps, when they're having experiences like live streaming, for example. Yeah, so higher dissipation, given the especially given that it's a unibody aluminum frame, which is really cool. They say forged, but they said CNC'd, so I don't understand what they're doing right now. Yeah, so higher conductivity for titanium. It's lighter as well. Um, and having a unibody design allows them to have a more rigid frame, which at the same time means that they can build a lighter frame, so less material, more rigid for the same amount of rigidity. Rigidity, um, and so that would allow them to. Oh my god, that orange looks so good. That would allow them to have a lighter iPhone. The 16 Pro wasn't particularly heavy, but it's always better to have a lighter device. They talk about a larger battery, but we have no details about the battery capacity at all, as always. So I feel like a broken record, but all right, 6-core CPU, same thing as the last one, with 4x the peak compute of the last year's model. So compared to the Air, where it was 3 times, it sounds like the extra thermal dissipation does help. So they're saying 40% better sustained performance than the iPhone 16 Pro, which in all all use cases, that is probably due to like a 30% higher power envelope due to the higher battery, bigger battery, and like 15 or 20% improvements on generational capacity. It is still on the free NP node, free yeah 3 nanometer P performance node from TSMC. So as I was saying earlier, this is TSMC's most performance version of this node until we go on to 2 nanometers next year. Um, it is the same size as last year's model, but there was a lot of optimization to be gained over the optimization of TSMC as well as what Apple has done. So the ceramic shield, same thing as the last announcements for the iPhone 17 and 17 Air, with the ceramic coating allowing for less scratches on both sides. I don't know a lot of people who don't put on a case on their iPhones, so I don't really see how useful it is. But maybe I'm an outlier. A lot of people might want to rock their iPhones without a case. So they say for our eSIM only models, so that hints at the fact that there are a physical SIM model and for the Chinese mainland. So yeah, sounds about right. So cameras, this is the big use case for the iPhone 17 Pro, the reason that most people are going to care about it at all. So we're going to have a small transition again, and we're going to see what this looks like. It's probably going to be the exact same cameras as the last ones. So we're going to hear the same marketing speech about how it's 4 cameras in one, and we're going to shoot this in the nighttime. I mean, obviously we're doing this at nighttime to showcase. This is a shot on the iPhone 17 Pro, probably. Um, so we're doing these shoots at nighttime to showcase that these iPhones can have good capacity to shoot in low lights. Um, but at the same time, these shots don't really look great. It looks a little bit blurry, honestly, in the live, and I'm not a fan. It does look okay, but honestly, it doesn't look as good as it could be, and it doesn't look as good as it has looked in the past. So I just wish that they had just stuck with daylight shooting and done some sections in nighttime versus doing like all of these sections in nighttime. It's going to be a big reveal at the end of the event, like, oh, this was all shot on iPhone. Um, oh, 4x. So instead of 5x, we're at 4x with a digital zoom at 8x, which kind of doubles the old telephoto. Oh my. Okay, so 56% larger for the telephoto sensor, which is a 48 megapixel 48 megapixel camera. Um, so yeah, this was one of the main issues that a lot of creators and content creators have had in the past year, talking about how the iPhone 16 Pro zoom cameras really weren't high resolution enough or didn't perform well in low lights. With it being double the size, um, that will definitely help with gathering lights in low lights. Um, and these are beautiful pictures, obviously, but they're all lit and all like set up in situations to make it look advantageous for Apple. So great, we have machine learning in even more parts. We haven't had a single mention of Apple Intelligence, which is something interesting, uh, compared to last year, where it was one of the main selling features of the iPhone 16. It goes to show how Apple's rollout of Apple Intelligence has been completely botched. It's a total disaster, and yeah, I think a lot of people are very disappointed about that because the other the other phone manufacturers have created this this kind of more useful ecosystem for AI, whereas Apple has promised it and not achieved anything. But yeah, this new telephoto zoom looks nice with even higher capacity for zooming in than before. Um, these are beautiful pictures, of course, but I'm I'm curious to see what actual people, when they get their hands on this, what pictures they're able to take, because, as I said, like these are all staged. Um, yeah. So I was expecting them to pull the "we're shooting this on the iPhone" at the end, but we're doing it now. So 4K 120 is the same as last year. I've had a lot of issues with my iPhone using it as a shooting camera because it's overheated. It skipped frames with the DaVinci camera. Um, the dynamic range has not really been as good as I would have liked. ProRes RAW capture, which, if you want to tank your storage space on a camera sensor that isn't great, um, yeah, at some point, like if the storage that you're rocking is more expensive than the phone that you're using, um, that might be that might be like something that is not super relevant, but it is good that they have implemented it. Um, oh, time code. So video synchronization between different cameras. This is something that I really use for weddings, and so having Genlock allows you to have smoother post-production workflows. So basically, instead of synchronizing everything DIY, um, you can just have a machine do it yourself. This is a cool bullet time frame where, huh, so we're not able to output timecode directly, but you're able to use ProRes log, which is probably the approach that most filmmakers are going to use. So we have TechWoven, which is the new material that replaces FineWoven from Apple, which was a botched release. I believe it was 2020. Um, their alternative to lever cases in an effort to pitch their climate goals, but yeah, it was kind of a failure because durability was really low. It was discontinued after 1 year or two, um, but it seems that they finally gone back to it and seen it on the drawing board. Is it possible that we can get this working again? I'm sorry if my eyes are closing a little bit. I'm a little bit tired, but my eyes are very, very sore. But yeah, of course, this is the most powerful iPhone ever made. Duh. Um, but the 4x zoom on the cameras seems like a pretty good in between from what a lot of people were asking about. They wanted the 3x zoom back from the iPhone 15 versus the 5x zoom that you got on the iPhone 16. But other than that, yeah, these Apple ads are a little bit silly, but it does reflect how people will go around the world using them. Um, this is the point where Apple is pandering to the media that are watching this to show like we care about you, don't worry. Um, at the same time, I don't know a lot of people who would actually go on big professional sets and use an iPhone camera, but these are cool practical effects that they're showcasing that would be possible in theory with an iPhone, which is not something that would have been really feasible for the quality that it outputs even 10 years ago, or maybe not 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. But I, wait, how does that tripod mount? It seemed like it was MagSafe mounts for the tripod, but it's very curious. I wonder. So 256 gigs of storage compared to last year, which is much better than 128 gigs, especially if you're a pro device. Um, yeah, compared to the past years where Apple was gouging you really on every upgrade, I think they're a little bit more confident, or maybe they have more pressure, competitive pressure coming in from China, um, where they have to lower the prices a little bit. With 2 terabytes of storage on their Pro Max version of the iPhone 17, definitely geared at filmmakers if if you're able to shoot 2 terabytes for a single project. But yeah, I think that'll be the end of the live stream. Um, the 16E, the 16E being released earlier this year and still being available for a lower price now makes a lot of sense, especially given how expensive it was before. If you want a new iPhone, it's now the cheapest iPhone still, but I mean, I don't understand why anyone would go for a 16E without considering secondhand, because even just a brand new secondhand phone-ish, brand new, with warranty and everything, costs less than the 16E. So yeah, they're really flexing the low light capabilities of the new camera. That's probably one of the perks that the AI features have, where I don't know exactly when they shot this, but everything is extremely well lit. You can see one main light coming in from the, like 2 lights coming in on Tim, allowing to light up the whole section as well. So it's obviously not a real low lights style thing. I wonder what the heat map effect was all about, because we don't really hear that much about it. But yeah, I think that's all we have for you from the iPhone events. I'm going to go and shoot and edit the full review, and I will be seeing you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to the one viewer that I had. Um, I had two viewers at one point, so that was my one viewer because I'm watching myself. It's very sad, but I'm used to being lonely and forgotten. Eh. Anyways, I'm way too tired. I wish I had been able to put up the Apple live stream as well this year, but it seems that it was a little bit too complicated. I really should have put it up on the background, but you know, live and learn. I should have set this up properly. Anyways, take care. Until next time, I will be putting this together. Let's go.